All right, you're all set.
It's all good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Board's work session for Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. Jill, do you want to walk us through the agenda?
Absolutely. So first on our agenda is authorization to issue an RFP for a preliminary engineering report. This is a document that is something that we used to do on a regular basis, and for whatever reason, we've fallen out of the habit and we need to get back into it. A preliminary engineering report is an assessment document that enables us to identify and assess the state of, in this case, our water system, and to be able to identify for us those projects that we should be dealing with on a priority basis, and helps us plan long-term and short-term. It also is the foundational document for our grants going forward. So we're very excited to get back on the right track in this regard. And so we're requesting authorization to issue a request for proposals for this document. Any questions on that? Okay. The next thing on the agenda is authorization to approve the Meadow Hill sewer and water main dedication. Typically, what happens when sewer and water mains are built as development occurs within town, we ask for a maintenance bond for a couple of years to make sure that the installation is proper before we accept dedication. In this instance, these two, the sewer and the water main, have both been in operation and approved by the health department for 5 years. And so it's time. They're ripe. We're ready. We're satisfied that that they are primed to be dedicated. So that's going to the next thing. I'm actually going to ask the board to hold the authorization to award the contract for survey work. This was a late addition. We actually only got one bid in, one complete bid. And I think maybe we would like to take a look at that again and perhaps issue it on BidNet as opposed to just locally. I know land surveyors are very busy with the housing market. And so maybe that's the reason that we didn't get the response that we normally do, but it's a lot of money and we only got one bid. So there is, time is not of the essence in this regard. So I think we'd like to hold it for a little bit. The next is an authorization to appoint Jeremy Saland to fill the vacant office of town supervisor. And this is a discussion with the board.
Right. I'll kick off the conversation about this. So I obviously asked to have this added to the agenda for this evening and asked to have town council prepare a resolution to appoint Jeremy Saland as the town supervisor upon my resignation. I'll start by just saying that I have to admit I'm a little disappointed in the board that there hasn't been a resolution and that there isn't an agreement yet among the board members so that we could provide clarity to the community about what will happen tomorrow when my resignation becomes effective. There's essentially two options that are on the table that we've discussed before, but I just wanted to go over them for anyone who might be watching this evening. The first option is basically what I refer to as the do nothing option, which is that sort of by default, if the town board does not take any other action, Jeremy Saland becomes the acting town supervisor and serves in that capacity until the outcome of the general election is known in November. The second option is the option that we're discussing this evening and about which I had the resolution drafted, and that is to appoint Jeremy to the role of deputy supervisor. To appoint Jeremy to the role of town supervisor. He's currently the deputy supervisor. So Jeremy has obviously indicated to the entire board, as well as to me and to the community, that he would prefer to be appointed. And I support that, fully support Jeremy's decision. And even though I recognize it's not my decision to make, I did want to add this to the agenda this evening, and I just wanted to make my opinions known about this particular issue. So when I was elected to this position, to town supervisor in 2019, I received 2/3 of the votes that were cast in that year, 2019, for town supervisor. It was really a tremendous show of support for my candidacy, and my margin of victory was larger than any other in recent history. And Jeremy won by a similar large margin. And I say that not to toot my own horn, but rather just because I do think that my opinion about what should be done with the remainder of the term to which I was elected should be given full consideration by the board. So I selected Jeremy as my deputy for two simple reasons. And it wasn't a tough decision to appoint him as my deputy. Jeremy's ideological views on policy issues most clearly match my own. We obviously have very different styles, as everyone has seen, but we are really aligned when it comes to policy and our thinking on those issues. But I also appointed Jeremy because he has really deep knowledge of town government. And I knew that he would be able to assist me in my first year in office, as well as to be able to seamlessly step into my shoes if so needed. I think, in addition, that there are some really good reasons to appoint Jeremy, as opposed to going with the do nothing option, as I call it. The first being that we are still very much in a pandemic. We had some great news today about the number of restrictions that are being lifted. But we are still in a state of emergency, and it's my opinion that leadership should be clear. There's been an absolute increase in the amount of intermunicipal work that has gone on over the past year and a half. The collaboration between and among municipalities has been a great deal of my job. And so there should be clarity not only within this community, but also within our neighboring communities as to who's kind of steering the ship, as it were. And I think the community has a right to expect stable leadership in the town supervisor role. The second reason I think it makes a lot of sense to appoint Jeremy to this role is, and this is a little bit crass, but I'll put it out there, the salary of the town supervisor is 4 times the salary of a town board member. And, you know, I will tell you, I have served in both capacities. I'm the only town board member now who has. The workload is 4 times as much. So I was not exactly the kind of town council member who was sitting idly by and just showing up to take pictures. I mean, I was doing a lot of work when I was on the board, but I am doing 4 times as much work as the town supervisor. And I think that Jeremy would earn that increase. And the last reason is that Jeremy has very much, in my opinion, earned this appointment. So Jeremy obviously has stepped up over the past year and a half in ways that no prior deputy has had to. My son died in February of 2020, and a week later, the first COVID case was identified in New York. I returned to work on March 13th, which was only 2 weeks after my son passed away. But my leadership then, starting March 13th, and every day thereafter, has really been a partnership between Jeremy and myself. This town never missed a beat, and that's due to Jeremy's dedication in the work that he was doing. Back in March of 2020, we were able to put out daily newsletters all about the unfolding pandemic. The community was really kept apprised of the crisis, and Jeremy took the lead in communicating with the community. His leadership during that time and since has been exemplary and, in my opinion, flawless. And maybe you don't know, because Jeremy wasn't the type who ever grabbed the spotlight. He always let me shine. He has supported me in every way and helped me to be able to continue to do this role. He literally has walked side by side with me through my grief. And I know that people saw us when we were walking around my neighborhood. So they know he has literally been propping me up and helping me each step of the way. I really can't imagine a better deputy. I can't imagine a better friend. And I can't imagine anyone who's more qualified to step into the role of town supervisor. The things that we've accomplished over the past year and a half are truly shared accomplishments, and they're significant. I'm not going to take the time to list them all tonight. But you know, among the other things that we did, we held the line on property taxes. We insisted on a 0% increase in the tax levy while also challenging the town to maintain a consistently high level of service. The town not only survived during the pandemic, but we thrived. Other communities were limping by, and we walked through the pandemic with our heads held high. So the last thing I want to say to the town board, and then I'll turn it over to you guys to discuss and hopefully to make a decision and come to some kind of consensus around this, is obviously I put this on the agenda and I wanted to address everybody because it's personal for me. And I'm asking you, as my colleagues on the town board, out of respect for me and for my service to this community through what was obviously the worst year of my life, I would like you to honor my request and to appoint Jeremy. Please know that all I've ever wanted for this community was what was best and what I believe to be the right thing. And I've given a lot of myself in service to this town. It's been harder than anyone could ever possibly know. And in return, I'm now asking you for this. So thank you all for hearing me out. And I hope that you will give this request your consideration. So I'll stop talking and let you guys discuss.
Let me jump in. And first of all, I'm not going to respond to all the nice things you said that were incredibly gracious. And you have done an outstanding job. I think I'll hold my remarks to that point towards the end of our meeting today. Nick, while you're there, just very briefly, just for the purpose of this conversation, I thought I'd share a couple of things and my thoughts, and again, briefly, and then should I step away, Nick?
No, you're still on the board and part of the discussion. So I think you should make your point, and you're entitled to advocate for yourself and respond to other comments that are there. So you're still part of that discussion.
Okay, so then, you know, what I think the issue here, among others, is, as Ivy said, I believe in continuity. And to Ivy's point that we've been partners in this, but by no means is this equal partnership. Ivy, by far and away, led the charge and did it tremendously well. But we have been, along with Jill and along with other people on town staff, been intimately working together, you know, to make sure, you know, day in and day out that things, you know, progress in the right way. And again, it's Ivy and Jill far more than me. But I have been immersed in this the past year, and more so than probably any deputy previously, because of the tragic and unexpected, you know, passing of Ivy's son, and right then after COVID, which none of us could have prepared for personally in terms of our town. None of us could have been ready for that. I think that it's also important, not just for that continuity, but not that anyone would make this a political issue, but so people understand, as I think Ivy mentioned, come November, whoever were to win that general election would sit for the remainder of the year. But I think the town should know that no matter whether it's Lisa or Holly who wins, that we're going to have that continuity. It shouldn't be something, well, we don't know what's going to happen in November. No one can say, I don't know the machinations, and no one can say, I don't know what's happening in town hall. No one can say, I'm not versed in the important issues that we're facing. And for the most part, other than some key issues, the town board is in unity and unison on these issues. So I would never say I deserve it, because that's not appropriate. But I will say that I've worked diligently. I've worked hard. I've really been immersed in it. It's continuity. It's not political. I'm going to be acting anyway, for lack of a better term, and it's only the last couple of months. I'd ask that you consider my appointment, and I'm grateful again for Ivy's generous words.
So a couple things I think when we're having this discussion, we should also think about. And Jeremy, you have stepped up a lot, you know, during this pandemic and during, you know, everything that unfortunately, you know, transpired with Ivy and her son, which is heartbreaking. And I 100% agree with Ivy that the work of a town supervisor is way more work than a town board member. So I did check with council, and we could, even if you stay as acting supervisor, this town board can increase your salary during the time you serve as acting supervisor to the same salary as the supervisor. So we can kind of take that off the table, and we can do that by resolution. I confirmed, just to make sure. So I think that's not something you necessarily have to worry about. That can be done either way. And I think that you would absolutely deserve that, whether you were appointed supervisor or acting supervisor. And I think no matter what, also, we will have stable leadership, because under town code, I think it's section 42, you automatically, by operation of law, because you're deputy supervisor, if the supervisor can no longer act for any reason, you will be serving as acting supervisor. So there will always be in our town, continuity of leadership, whether or not you are serving as acting supervisor or appointed supervisor. What troubles me here, which wasn't mentioned, is that by appointing you as acting supervisor, you actually have to resign from your town board seat, which then leaves a vacancy on the town board, which means that there are 5 town board seats. The entire town board will be up for re-election in November. And that's something, the reason we have a staggered board is so that there's always continuity of experience and leadership on the board. And by staggered board, that means the supervisor is up every 2 years and 2 of the 4 town board members are up every 2 years for their 4-year terms, so that we always do have that continuity. This would be the first time that we wouldn't have that. And I think there are vacancies that are not planned, such as, Ivy moving, unfortunately. And there are vacancies that we would manufacture, such as this, if you resign so that you could be appointed supervisor. So as we have that conversation, that's something we need to consider. And my understanding is that your seat would then be appointed by potentially one political party who would run unopposed. And that's not necessarily giving voters a chance to opine on that. So those are things that I'm kind of looking at as we have this discussion and consider. But I do think that you 100%, deserve that salary raise, because it's a lot more work. And I think that's something that the town board, by resolution, we can definitely give you.
Just for clarity purposes, Lisa, I think you, and not intentionally, so I think you misstated something. My understanding, and I believe it is yours too, those parties that are on the ballot, they all could appoint someone to run. So in theory, it could be the Democrats, the Republicans, the Conservatives, and whoever else is Working Families Party. So it wouldn't be unopposed, whether or not the outcome you believe would be a certain way, but it's not unopposed. I think that's an important piece to recognize.
I think that's an important distinction. Ivy, thank you for that summary. And Jeremy, I have a great deal of respect for all of my colleagues on the board. Jeremy, I agree, has absolutely held a distinctive role on the board, since last winter. And his qualification for this role should be unquestioned. And the form in which he would like to take it, I fully support. So if Jeremy prefers to have the title along with the salary without any question about his role as the leader of the town board and the role of supervisor, then that is the course that I support. This service asks a great deal of people. And these have been extraordinary times that have asked even more extraordinary sacrifice and challenge of everyone. And Jeremy, I think that you deserve our support, and you deserve the form in which you're willing to take on this responsibility.
So I do want to say that I really thank Jeremy for doing all this work and being committed to moving the ball forward, because quite frankly, this these past 2 years have been extremely challenging for all of us. And personally, for me, I just think that it makes a lot of sense for Jeremy to go into this role, and I support him in that sense as well, because again, like, it's a thankless job. Nobody really, and the fact that you're stepping up to do it and to do the work, I think speaks volumes. And I really commend you, because quite frankly, like, I couldn't do it. And I just don't see, I don't see how any of, candidly, how any of us can do it, and Jeremy can. And so I really just, I thank you for stepping in right now, out of, under these circumstances, because I think it's just a really, it's a tough ask. It is. So I do support it as well.
Let me say, I thank everyone for giving this a lot of thought. Lisa, I hope you reconsider. Obviously, if I wanted to run for supervisor, I would have done so. It's not as if I asked for this, not as if I wanted this. I'm sure that's not lost on anybody, and certainly not under this type of situation. It's not some unbridled passion I have to serve as town supervisor. And when given the opportunity, I didn't pursue it because I know the commitment that it takes to do so. So I commend everybody here. I mean, you guys are being, again, everyone's being very gracious. So I appreciate the kind words. But to Lori and Lauren, there's 3 L's, so I'll make sure I have those 2 L's. Lori and Lauren, I do appreciate it. And Lisa, I ask you, to reconsider. I understand the issue that you presented. I don't think this is insurmountable at whatsoever. And I won't go rehash everything, but thank you.
So do we have any clarity on who the proposed appointees would be for your open seat from anyone?
My response to that, and I think it's an important question, there's this big perception that somehow there's a marriage between or a puppeteer with the Democratic Party and I'll call them the party bosses, and Lori, Ivy, and me, or anyone who runs. And simply that's not the case. They don't answer to me. I don't answer to them. I don't think, frankly, without them, part of me knowing what's going to happen, for them to come to a conclusion. But I don't have all those answers, if any, part of me, because I'm not immersed and involved in that process. It's certainly not my decision. But I understand the question, but I don't think it should be about the politics of it. It should be about how and what is best for the town. And I do believe that me stepping up in a formal capacity is that. But I can't answer your question, Lisa. I don't think
no, that's okay. It's not to me so much about the politics. It's that in the last term, we've had 4. If this went through, we'll have 4 appointees. So Ivy, when she won for supervisor, we appointed for her seat because she won and had to vacate her town board seat. Then Jason decided to leave and we had to appoint his seat. Then with Ivy leaving, we potentially need to appoint her seat. And then Jeremy, if you take that position, then we have to appoint your seat. And none of those positions are elected or have been so far. So, I feel like my concern is that our residents deserve to vote on these, and you will do a phenomenal job as supervisor, whether you're acting or appointed supervisor. I'm still talking, Lori. Whether you're appointed or acting supervisor, and we can still pay you as supervisor. So I'm not totally seeing why it's necessary to make the appointment with the resulting vacancy on the board that will then, I guess one of the political parties would essentially appoint someone then to get on the ballot.
So
or two, which one like any of the ones that are on the ballot. So not an independent, but I guess if there's a Republican or a Democratic, any of the others, but I don't know that they, I don't know. That's my concern is that, and then we have a full entire 5 board of potentially all new people.
Lori, before you respond, I apologize, Lori, I just want to answer something. I look at the composition of this board, and I look at Lauren specifically, and to a lesser extent, Lori, only because it was a 2-year as opposed to a 1-year appointment. And I ran against Lauren, and it's, not that there was any adverse, I'm not sure the right word, there wasn't a clash of any kind at all, really, between us. But I couldn't be more grateful that we have beyond competent, professional, hungry to do the right thing people on this town board, and our community is rich with that. And we really hit the jackpot with both Lori and Lauren.
I'm sorry, Lori is elected.
No,
Lori is not
elected.
No, but
And
you're
Lauren,
filling out.
that wasn't anything about you. I think you're phenomenal.
I mean,
That was
filling out
nothing about that. I'm just talking about vacancies in general.
I mean, filling out a special term is what I meant in terms of that. That's what I'm referring to. So I think, the way the process worked is we still got people on the board after someone left. That's the point I'm making. And I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. We had good people who stepped up and did it. So I don't see that as an issue, and I'm confident someone will now and do the same thing. And back to the point I made before was that the continuity ends in November. Why should the town not know whether it's you or Holly come November after the election who's going to serve and what happens next? And I think that the town should know, with the majority of people supporting a particular issue, that issue can move forward irrespective of what the supervisor believes in or doesn't want on the agenda. And that's not something specifically to you. I just think in general, people should understand that. So what will happen, but we still should have continuity. I apologize, Lori, for stealing your time.
No, that's okay. I had a quick point of clarification from Nick. I was operating under the understanding that we have the option as a board to, if Jeremy is to assume the supervisor seat and vacate his town board member seat, that we can leave that seat vacant for the remainder of the year to be then filled by election in November. Is that correct?
That is correct. You do not have to fill that vacant seat should Jeremy resign his seat.
That is the path that I would personally be in favor of.
I certainly support not bringing an additional person on the town board now. I think it makes sense because to come on this late in the process just for this year, not having that depth of knowledge and that scope of knowledge is difficult and frankly not fair. It's not starting from the ground up. You're starting right at the end. So I support that, but I hopefully it's not an issue. I think we all support that.
Well, again, I'll just say that, I really, it frustrates me that it's been over a month since I announced my resignation and that this board is still having the same conversations and walking around and around this issue. Feels like the community deserves an answer. And it also really, to me, feels it's crystal clear to me that if this is what Jeremy is requesting, that he has earned the right to be able to make this request and for the board to honor him with this appointment. He has really gone above and beyond this year, and to be holding it hostage for political reasons is, in my opinion, inexcusable. It's playing politics with something that should not be played politics with.
So I'm assuming you're talking to me. I'm not playing politics. Jeremy will be acting as supervisor no matter what. He will get the salary of supervisor no matter what. I am concerned that we will have 5 people on a town board that is supposed to have continuity on a town board up for election. And frankly, if you think Jeremy does such a good job on the board, which I frankly do think that, and I would love to continue to work with him, I actually would want him to remain on the town board for the next 2 years so I can work with him rather than have 5 members potentially who have 0 experience on a town board be elected. That is a possibility that you could have 5 people completely brand new to a town board be elected, which was not the point of a staggered board. And that's very troubling to me. And it should be troubling to you and our entire community. When Jeremy can still act as supervisor, that is completely stable leadership, and he can get paid to act as supervisor, as he 100% should.
And again, just to be clear, that would be through November. It wouldn't be through.
No, it'll be through the end of the year. Town boards don't take office until
No.
until January.
No, not with Nick. My understanding is different. Nick, can you explain, please?
Well, certainly if the seat remains vacant, if the supervisor seat is not filled, and Jeremy then, or whomever is the deputy supervisor, then whoever wins the supervisor's election in November would automatically take office and assume that seat as of the certification of the election before January.
Right. So then your seat, or if you were to win, or Holly were to win, depending on what would happen, I certainly wouldn't be in that position, and it would be starting, for lack of a better term, fresh there.
Well, it's the same argument, though. You could potentially have a brand new person and a brand new 5-person board taking, I mean, one when then could potentially be there for 2 months before the others take office. But that to me is troubling from a continuity perspective on the town board. And it's not a political thing. It's practical and concerned about the future of the town.
So I think I know where we are, everyone stands right now. I mean, I think, is there anything else anyone wants to add or share? No? Okay.
Just one more thing. I think that, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to articulate what I want to say, because again, like, as candidly, like the appointed person on this town board, and as someone who was never elected into this position, I learned a lot through this process. And I think a lot of the reason why I decided not to run for election was because of situations like this. I really think that it just creates a really terrible, terrible precedent, or a terrible paradigm for a town board to kind of, what Ivy said, like holding someone hostage who wants to step into a role. And like, as work colleagues, like I really just support someone's, especially someone who has worked hard, in these past 2 years, and who did step up and who wants to step up now. I just don't see any of us stepping up into that role. I really don't. And personally, for me, it's like, it's just not something that I can do, or I think that the fact that Jeremy does want to do it and is asking us, like, I think that means a lot. And again, like, I just functionally think that the continuity aspect, the person who is the town supervisor, the leadership, just to get us through these next few months, it's really important, the tone and the style in which we get through this. And as a town board and as a team, I find it incredibly important. So I just ask that we all just think about this and figure out how to make this work, so that no one leaves here resenting each other or feeling like I can't work with this person in the next week or two. Thanks.
Again, Lauren, thank you for being generous and kind, and I certainly am in agreement with you. And listen, personal feelings aside, I certainly would be beyond disappointed if Lisa, whom I've known for my entire term, obviously on the town board, and I'm very close to a family member of hers, just as close friends. It's not as if, again, I didn't ask for this. I didn't pursue this. I didn't run for this. Certainly not under these circumstances, but I am equipped to do it. I'm ready to do it. I've unfortunately been immersed in it this past year, but in terms of resentment, listen, we're all going to work together at the end of the day. We all have to put our do what's right hat on, personal feelings aside. But will I be disappointed? Personally, absolutely. Absolutely. Will I harbor ill will that I can't work with Lisa? Absolutely not. But yes, personally, I'll be disappointed, but it is what it is. There's a lot of things in life we're disappointed about, but this is, in the whole scheme of life, not a big one, but it's certainly something that I ask that you reconsider, Lisa.
I hear you, Jeremy. And you know, I told you, if it was just, it's not anything personal. I really like you. I really like working with you. I think you are actually very, for the most part, you know, practical. You stepped up when you were really needed. But the issue is not you. It's that it's this vacancy on the town board that's going to be artificially created. And I'm very concerned about the continuity of this board. 5 new members of a town board is nothing that anybody needs in this town. And that concerns me. And it's not you. Again, I want you to serve as acting supervisor. I want you to be paid for that job. And you will be running this town board for the next until November. But that's what I'm concerned about. And I think it's a valid concern that everyone should be a little worried about.
So again, I think we're going in circles, and I'm not to lead the conversation here, but although I can lead the conversation starting tomorrow, right now I can't. It's Ivy's role. So if anyone, but I don't want to just keep on going and going. So is there else anything to add?
Only that we would be putting the choice of that future town board in the hands of our voters. I think that's where many have said it belongs. So so I think there's a hunger for that, and this creates the opportunity for our voters to select the folks that they want to have on their town board. I'm not in favor of trying to game this or subvert the law when we have a path that meets the goals, which is Jeremy's preference for assuming this role, and the voters' choice for who takes office in January.
Okay, I don't think any law is being subverted, but Nick, can we at a minimum pass, because Ivy is resigning at the end of this meeting, or the end of the day, can we at a minimum pass a resolution to increase Jeremy's salary to the supervisor's salary as long as he serves as acting supervisor?
I think that resolution is best done when the seat is vacant, because right now the salary is being paid to Ivy. So I think that could be considered at your next meeting. Well,
no, that's what I was saying. Since it will be tomorrow and our next meeting isn't for another week, can't we? I mean, we do resolutions all the time that say effective as of. So as effective as of the time he begins to act as supervisor, we would increase his salary. So it would start tomorrow. Can't we?
Well, so Lisa, are you effectively saying then you are unwilling to grant Jeremy the appointment to town supervisor? Is that what you're saying?
At this time, I would feel it's more appropriate for this town for him to serve as acting supervisor with an increase in salary to the supervisor's salary.
At this time, what does that mean? At this time, what's a better time? When would be a good time to ask you this?
Okay, I feel that it is more appropriate for Jeremy to remain as acting supervisor, but earn the salary of the supervisor while he serves in such capacity. I think that is the fairest thing for this town.
So is that what's the game? Is that your final answer?
I was just asked for a final answer. So yes. If
I find that incredibly disrespectful.
Okay.
I asked
circumstances change at some point, we can reconsider that, but right now that is my answer, because I'm not comfortable with a brand new
primary
board.
Election in order to do the right thing. Somebody's asking you to do the right thing. Jeremy stepped up and he's offered to take on this responsibility. I've asked you as my colleague, out of respect for me and what I've gone through this year and all that I've done for this community, to do the right thing, and you're unwilling to do it.
Wrong. I actually think I am doing the right thing by making sure, okay, Ivy, by making sure that there is continuity on this board, which is very important. I respect the job you did. I feel terrible, obviously, what happened to your family. That has nothing to do with what the board is going to look like next year. And frankly, if we have 5 new members on the town board, that is not good for anyone in this town. So I am actually doing the right thing and actually looking beyond this board and looking beyond personal wants to what our community needs, and not necessarily what you or Jeremy want.
It looks a lot like you're holding Jeremy and the town hostage.
Okay, thank you for that opinion. Hostage for what? I'm not getting a thing out of it. And the town is getting someone who's acting as supervisor and is being paid for supervisor. So you might want to reconsider those words. I am looking out for our community. And I know Jeremy is disappointed in this, and I know Ivy may be disappointed in this. And Jeremy, we've talked about things that we can potentially do, but I think the right thing for this town is for Jeremy to serve as acting supervisor by operation of law and be paid for that job.
Again, I'm disappointed when I say it is what it is.
I'm disgusted.
I don't think that this town will suffer. I look at those on the town board now, and again, we look at Lauren, who stepped up. We look at Lori, but that came by way of a special election. And they're both beyond assets, incredible assets. I mean, the value that they've added and the work that they've done and the intelligence that they have and the knowledge they've developed in their respective times is incredible. So, we're very fortunate in this community to have people who are bright and eager and hungry to be involved and be part of the process. I don't think we're going to want for that. So again, am I disappointed? I'm extremely disappointed, but I also don't want it to be about doing what Jeremy wants and what Ivy wants. It's not as if it's either it's one or the other. It's not as if you do what Jeremy wants, the town suffers. And if you don't do what Jeremy wants, the town is okay. That's not the right equation. So I'd ask that you reconsider and think about it respectfully, and that we potentially readdress this sooner rather than later. We're going to work together. Disappointed is putting it nicely. But I guess those who do not like my position on things, maybe they should be, you be careful what you wish for, because they'll have me for another 2 years. It is what it is. But the town will survive one way or another. The town will thrive one way or another. It certainly will. Make no mistake. So I guess we should just move on. Unless someone else has something else to say. All right. So what's the next step then? Just move on. We're done here for now.
Jill, you want to go through the administrative items?
Sure. The next thing we have on our agenda is the payment of claims, the adoption of minutes from June 8th, the Juneteenth resolution, authorization to renew the annual ECI contract increase for the preventative maintenance Atlantic at Westchester. That's our HVAC systems. We have an authorization to attend a 2021 Cornell seminar on appraiser. That's for Josh, Herman, our assessor, and authorization to attend the IACP conference. And from our police, we're actually resuming conferences, which is really exciting for staff. Anyone have any comments on the administrative items? Okay. And the next is our public hearing.
Okay, so tonight we have a public hearing on the extension for 6 months of our local law, which has imposed a moratorium on the ability to develop the downtown business district, and specifically now limited to the North Greeley corridor. Can we get a motion to open up the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so if anyone is here who would like to offer a public comment and would like to be heard at our hearing, please go ahead and raise your digital hand. Pam, I'll check with you and see whether we have anyone asking any questions over YouTube.
I just
And
checked.
Ivy,
There's-
while Pam is
No, go ahead, Nicholas.
checking, I'll just note that the local law was referred to the town planning board and the county planning department. We're waiting for comments from the planning department, and the the town planning board will be discussing this at its next meeting tomorrow. And so this will be on for the board's consideration. We would suggest that the hearing be continued to your next meeting. And the local law, the current moratorium expires on June 22nd, so you have time.
Great. Thanks, Nick.
There's no one on YouTube with any comments or questions, and no one has their digital hand raised at this time.
Great. I'll check with Lauren Cascone, our deputy town clerk.
No, we didn't receive any other comments.
Okay. So then can we get a motion to adjourn the public hearing until June 22nd? I'm saying that right, Nick?
I think it,
23rd.
right, I think the board may be
23rd.
considering,
Oh, sorry, 23rd.
23rd.
Yep.
which is still fine. The moratorium will still be fine.
So Nick, it would be our intention to close the public hearing and then vote on it that same day on the 23rd?
That is correct, yes.
So moved.
Oh, someone has their hand raised. Do you want me to bring them in, or did it close? No.
No, public hearing.
No.
All right. Randy Glazer, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Randy.
Hi, I just wanted to take this opportunity just to publicly thank you, Ivy, for everything that you've done for us and our community, and just to wish you the best of everything in your future.
Randy.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in there and just say, if anyone else has any comments that they want to share, certainly they're entitled to do so, but this was for the public hearing on the moratorium. So we don't want a moratorium on Ivy? Is that what we're saying? We do want a moratorium on Ivy. But I think afterwards, I will offer that opportunity for the public comment.
I will. Okay, great. So sorry, where were we in adjourning the public hearing?
There was a motion made. You need a second to adjourn it to June 23rd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks.
We've got a couple of resolutions.
Yep.
Do you want to? I'd like to say something too. I don't know if we're going to, the public, I don't know who's here who wants to say something, but I don't know if we want to do that after the resolutions or before the resolutions.
Let's go through the resolutions first.
I'm pulling that up, but if someone beats me.
Here, I have them. I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $297,033.84 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail report, both dated June 11th, 2021. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, June 6th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the appointment of Lucille Rossi to the Community Development Advisory Group within the Westchester Urban County Consortium to represent the town of Newcastle for a one-year term effective June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have a proclamation for Juneteenth. Whereas our country is made up of people from every nation on earth who are declared equal not only in freedom, but also in justice, both of which are essential for a healthy human civilization. And whereas our nation was conceived on June 4th, 1776, with the Declaration of Independence, the classic statement being, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas at 2 p.m. on New Year's Day, January 1st, 1863, using his war powers as president, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, providing that all enslaved people within any state or designated part of a state shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. And whereas the Emancipation Proclamation made the permanent abolition of slavery a Union war aim and provided the legal framework for the emancipation of nearly all 4 million enslaved people as Union armies advanced. And whereas hearing of the proclamation, many enslaved people escaped to Union lines as the Army units moved south. And whereas word about the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation was delayed some 2.5 years in reaching authorities and African Americans in the South and Southwestern United States. And whereas the news of liberation of enslaved people came to Texas more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation went into effect on January 1st, 1863. African Americans across the state were made aware of their right to freedom on June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston with federal troops to read General Order Number 3, announcing the end of the Civil War and that all enslaved people were now free, as well as to maintain a presence in Texas for the purpose of enforcement and of emancipation among owners of enslaved people throughout the state. And whereas the observance of Juneteenth honors the history, perseverance, and achievements of Black people and celebrates America's progress and continuing commitment to realizing the principles of liberty and equality upon which our nation was founded. And whereas this observance is a reminder of the hardships and losses suffered by Black people in their struggle to attain freedom, and we pay tribute to the memory of those who made the ultimate sacrifice in this quest. Through their experiences and those of others who were successful in achieving victory, we find among the most poignant and valuable lessons of humankind that continue to resonate with people of all backgrounds. And whereas the official emancipation of Black people throughout the United States literally and figuratively opened doors of opportunity that enabled following generations to contribute immeasurably to our nation's richness, equality of citizens, and global leadership, and today's communities across our state, including the town of Newcastle, mark the anniversary of Juneteenth with appropriate commemorations. Now, therefore, be it that the town board hereby declares June 19th, 2021 as Juneteenth in the town of Newcastle and encourages all residents to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in Black history and in the heritage of our nation and town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'm sorry, I actually probably should have put this one on the work session agenda before just including it in the resolution. So I just want to say a quick thank you to the leadership of the Council on Race and Equity, Zabine and Nichelle for their assistance with this, as well as the diversity committee from the Greeley PTA who assisted with the language as well. And we're very excited that we are going to be hanging Juneteenth banners in town. We believe that they're going to come in tomorrow. So we will be further celebrating Juneteenth with some decorations here in town.
So I'm going to take the next, which is the authorization to accept the resignation of Ivy as town supervisor. And before I do that, I want to say a couple of things and lead with Martin in the Examiner News when we were running. I think made a statement that I said you were the most diligent person or something, the most hardworking person I worked with in public service and government, to which I responded, that's not true. I didn't say that. She's one of the hardest working people that I've ever worked with in public service or anywhere else for that matter. And now that I've worked with you as a council person and ultimately as in your supervisory role, I will say, I'll make that edit and say, Martin, you were right. You, Ivy, are the hardest person, that I have worked with, the most diligent, considerate, compassionate. You do your homework. No one's going to out prepare you. You always would take notes as things were going on, and you would flip back and say, oh yeah, this was what we discussed on this particular date. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm grateful to have learned from you and worked with you. But I'll say, even above that, one of the best things that has come from this is you are unequivocally my friend, and that is personally far more valuable. This has been a tough year for you. It's a big loss for you, and it's now a big loss for this community. And, you know, I hate to see you go on behalf personally, but on behalf of the town. But I'm very happy that you're going to start new and fresh. And you will always be able to look back, and not only this will always be your home, but you have done so much that we cannot say here in the time that we have all the things that you have done, whether a physical accomplishment, whether a policy accomplishment, or just you showing us how to get above the fray and lead. So I won't go through all the things that you've done, but you have really, really moved this community in the right direction. And I'm eternally grateful. And you really helped me move personally in the right direction. And I am even more grateful, if you can be more than eternally grateful, infinity plus one. So thank you so much, Ivy. I'm going to read this resignation, and then I would certainly offer everyone up the opportunity to share something as they, I guess, do a roll call vote, if you will. And I'll usurp your authority just for a moment, Ivy.
You're welcome to it, Jeremy.
Maybe I wouldn't. So I move to accept the resignation of Ivy Poole from the position of town supervisor within the town of Newcastle, effective June 16th, 2021. The town would like to thank you, Ivy, for your dedicated service to the town and our residents, and wish you the best of luck on your new journey. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, Ivy? I'll steal it, or do you want to do it?
Go ahead. You might as well get used to it.
All in favor?
It's all the town supervisor does anyway. So.
So I'll take a roll call vote. That's all in favor. So whomever wants to start can certainly have the opportunity to do so.
I'll start. So I remember very vividly when I got appointed to this board, and I thank Ivy so much, because I remember losing miserably at the election and thinking about how now I have to work with people I lost against. It was really a tough pill to swallow, quite frankly. Certainly something that caught me by surprise, because I remember walking into Ivy's office one day and she said to me, you know, I know you're new here. If you need something, are you good? Do you know, I remember when I first started, no one really asked me if I needed anything. And I just want to make sure that you have everything you need, you know what to do, you know what the time is for the meeting, et cetera, just like basic things, but quite frankly, just like super helpful. And just the warmness of that was really meaningful, Ivy. And I really, really, really will miss you. And I really have enjoyed working with you, and I've just learned so much from you as well. And so I thank you again for all that you've done for this community, what you've accomplished. I really hope that, you know, when you move to Chicago and spend time with your family, look back on this experience and say, hey, I did that. And hope you know that all of us are really grateful.
Well, guys, I really super much appreciate this. I'm really overwhelmed. I did not prepare anything. As Jeremy alluded to, I prepare everything. And it's been especially true facilitating these meetings on Zoom. As anybody knows who's done a lot of facilitation over Zoom, it's not as easy as it looks. So I, you know, typically have everything mapped out that I intend to say when I intend to say it. And I especially actually needed to start doing that for myself back when I first returned to work, because I was such a mess that I didn't know what I was doing. So I literally had every word. I had like your names and your first name and your last name, so I wouldn't forget them, because that's how careful I had to be at that time. It's, as I said earlier, this isn't the way that I intended all of this to go, but I am grateful for the experience. And it really, being elected to this position really was like a dream come true for me. And I will miss it, and I will miss all of you. And the best part about this for me, in terms of a legacy that I hope to leave behind, because gosh, I hope that people don't just remember me as the person from the form-based code, which did not start under me. But what I really hope that, people, that the legacy that I really leave behind is the people who are a part of the town hall staff and a part of this town board. Lauren, your appointment was probably the best decision I made as town supervisor. And that's why I begged you to continue for a second year. And the staff, the town hall staff that we have brought on, both during my time on the council, but also as supervisor. When I look at somebody like Chief Carroll, somebody like DPW Commissioner Bart Carey, Ike Cusio was somebody who started, I think in my first term, or maybe just before my first term, but was somebody we made an effort to make sure we were going to be able to retain here. I mean, we've got just incredible town hall staff leading every department. Sabrina Charney Hall, who predates me, but is fabulous as our town planner. Rob Deary, our town controller, has done just an amazing job. Christina Papes, our town clerk. Josh Herman, our town assessor. I mean, these are the people who are really running town hall day in and day out under Jill Shapiro's leadership, not under my leadership. I mean, Jill is the rock, and she is the one who keeps this community running and who goes above and beyond in every way. And so for me, even though it's hard for me personally to leave this position, I'm tremendously gratified by the team and the structure that I'm leading behind. And I know that with all my heart that we have the best possible team of elected officials and appointed officials and town hall staff who are going to see all of these important initiatives through and continue to carry the ball forward. So it was an honor to get to be the quarterback for a little while, but now I'm in the stands and I'm 100% rooting for this community and for this town, and I do believe it will be successful. So thanks, everybody.
Well, I asked if Lisa and Lori want to say anything as well.
Yeah, Ivy, really quickly. I remember when you were first elected and you were on the board for like 2 weeks. And I said to Rob, she's going to be supervisor one day. And I knew, because I could see how diligent you were and how much you really cared about this town. And you did become supervisor. And I think this town owes you a debt of gratitude for all that you've done. You've been through a really tough time that no one ever wishes you ever had to go through. And we would prefer you to be staying rather than leaving under the circumstances under which you're leaving, obviously. And I just want to say that I respect your courage and grace, and I wish your family, health, happiness, and healing in all your future endeavors. So thank you.
So I have, in my experience, had opportunity to meet some phenomenal leaders, and including incredible world-changing innovators, Nobel Prize winners. And Ivy, I absolutely count you among the most extraordinary leaders that I have had the privilege to be near, much less the privilege to work with. I am sad that I won't have the privilege to work with you as long as I would have liked to. But I retain the exceptional privilege of having you as a friend, and am committed to retaining that privilege for a very long time. So I wish you every happiness. I am excited for you and your family to be moving toward love and joy and opportunity and adventures. And with that, I say aye.
Well, let me jump in and say, Nick, before we take this vote, before I become the Jeff Hostetler to the Ivy's Phil Sims, if I say nay, does that mean she can't resign? Or she's still have enough votes? Can I get someone else to join me on this? Because we can hold out here. Can we filibuster this?
Filibuster, there we go.
Well, I'll give it to all in favor. I got an aye. So I think that passes.
You guys could have said no. Okay, you could have just rejected the motion. Okay, fine.
Thank you, guys. I'm totally flattered and humbled and a little embarrassed. So.
Well, let's finish
My
out the
daughter's in the office with me, so it's really embarrassing.
Well, she's probably had 3 cupcakes by now. So
She has actually 3 cupcakes.
so my suggestion would be finish
Really
up
good
the agenda and then allow people, if anyone wants to share their thoughts. I'm sorry, Ivy, too bad for you. So let's, what's the last item on the agenda? There was one more, or no, that's it?
There is just one more.
We added one.
Yeah,
Resolution.
right.
Um,
Regarding change order. Right.
So,
You got it, Jeremy?
yeah, I move to approve Boswell Engineering change order number 4 for additional engineering design and survey services for continued installation of concrete sidewalks in critical areas for a total of $46,145.27. And this is an old change order that wasn't paid for, correct, Nick?
Correct. That is correct.
Second.
Your last all in favor, Ivy.
I muted myself.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
I'll ask now, I'm stealing Ivy's thunder. Does anyone want to share anything? I see Michael Weinberg in the, as an attendee has a comment, but does anyone else want to share anything? You don't have to, it's on the spot.
Mine's written in the card, so I don't want to be.
Thank you.
I'll let you read it in the privacy of your office.
She knows not to say anything out loud. Like, if she says anything, I'll start hysterically crying.
You know what? My last gift to you.
With all due respect, Jill, maybe this is the better idea.
Touche.
So I will take over again for Ivy. Pam, can we move Michael Weinberg in, please?
Sure. Mr. Weinberg, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, guys. I assume everyone can hear me.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Ivy. So on the first part of my comments tonight are in my official capacity as special advisor to Senator Harcum. And we have a proclamation that we did from Senator Pete Harcum, recognizing Newcastle Supervisor. Wait, I need my glasses. Sorry. Recognizing Newcastle Supervisor Ivy Poole for her exemplary leadership and public service. Whereas it is the intent of this legislative body to honor and extol those individuals who perform exemplary service on behalf of their communities and state. And whereas Ivy has been a leader in Newcastle community since moving into the town in 2010, she has been a Girl Scout troop leader, girls softball coach, active member of the Grafflin School PTA, and served on the board member of the Chappaqua Volunteer Ambulance Corps. Whereas with the commitment of improving community, Ivy successfully ran for a seat on the Newcastle Town Board. And after serving for 2 years, she was elected town supervisor in 2019. And whereas under her leadership, the town has been committed to maintaining affordability for residents and avoided tax increases during her tenure, she has been dedicated to improving the quality of life in the community, passing legislation to restrict the use of leaf blowers and securing a grant from New York State to improve Millwood Park. And whereas Ivy led Newcastle with steadfast leadership through COVID-19 pandemic, among the numerous challenges facing our society, Ivy recognized substantial effects of systemic racism, prioritizing creating a more inclusive community by establishing the town's Committee on Race and Equity. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, New York State Senator Pete Harcum, recognize that in Ivy Poole, we have an individual worthy of our highest respect and esteem.
Thank you, Pete. And thank you, Mike, as Pete's representative.
Yes, and as a personal note, just for me, you know, I know we're all going to lose your, leadership, and we'll miss that for sure. But mostly, we'll miss your friendship, and I certainly will.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike.
Best of luck, Ivy. We'll talk.
Should we announce that tomorrow's Ivy Pool Day in Westchester?
Yeah.
I know, I'm so excited, guys.
The big jumbotron. And if you play your cards right, maybe the little one in town. We'll see if we can talk to people.
Oh, I was gonna say I know some people, but they probably don't know me anymore.
Yeah, I think just to clarify for those following at home, there was a resolution from the county recognizing Ivy's service and designation of tomorrow as Ivy Pool Day in Westchester County. So you will see her name on the Jumbotron if you are driving past the county center. Maybe you'll see Ivy and her family standing outside of it.
I might just stand there all day.
Okay, your name, your name isn't on there all day though, right? It sort of rotates through. So,
Son
sorry.
of a gun. You should talk to Vidakashi. I mean, he's the one who did it. All right. So anyone else? I don't mean to rush us out by all means, but say something. But I know Ivy's probably like, let's get this done. So anyone else want to share anything? Or are we done here? Seeing no hand.
I think
No one
we're
else has their hand raised.
done.
Bye, Ivy.
Thanks, Pam. So I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivy.